Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try to purify yourself, the world around you seems to be constantly trying to contaminate you? You live in an era of asepsis, hand sanitizer, and hot showers, but you feel that your soul is burdened by an invisible dirt that hinders your projects and your peace. Modern science says that hygiene is merely a matter of eliminating germs and bacteria to prolong life. However, the Bible and archaeology reveal something much deeper beneath the layers of time. For the ancients, physical cleanliness was the ultimate frontier of spiritual protection. Forget the pristine white robes you see in Hollywood movies. The reality of Judea in the 1st century was a brutal struggle against dust, 40-degree heat, and an absolute scarcity of water. How did Jesus and his disciples maintain their dignity and health in an environment where basic sanitation was a non-existent concept for most? Today, we're going to unearth the dirty truth that cinema has hidden from you. Get ready, because what archaeology has found in the sewers and houses of Jerusalem will change the way you see the Master's journey, and above all, your own journey of protection today. To understand hygiene in Jesus' time, we need to introduce a concept that modernity has ignored: the law of invisible borders. The ancient Jews understood something we have forgotten. The body is not a compartment separate from the spirit. If the external environment is in chaos and contamination, the inner temple suffers an invasion. In Hebrew, the distinction between the pure, gamblers, and the impure, tamei, it wasn't just a boring religious rule, it was a survival strategy. Imagine living in Jerusalem in 30 AD. The city received millions of pilgrims during the festivals. The smell of thousands of animals being sacrificed in the temple, mixed with the desert heat and the lack of modern sewage systems, created an environment where disease was a quick death sentence. Archaeologists have discovered that while the Roman Empire focused on monumental public baths for leisure and politics, the Jewish people developed a network of invisible boundaries within their own homes. They created a structure of stone and rituals that served as a shield against the chaos of the outside world. They knew that if you lose control over the cleanliness of what enters your home and what touches your body, you lose authority over your own life. This law of boundaries is what ensured that, even surrounded by filth, men like Jesus could maintain a presence of authority and clarity. They were not clean out of vanity, but out of vigilance. The mystery of the stone toilets and the management of chaos. The first major shock of reality comes from the place we least like to imagine: the bathrooms. In movies, we never see where people went. But archaeology has no shame. In the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 12 through 14, God gave specific military instructions regarding hygiene. People were to have a designated place outside the camp for their needs and use a shovel to bury their waste. Why? Because the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp. Therefore, your camp must be holy. During excavations at the city of David, archaeologists found something fascinating: private limestone toilets inside elite homes. These were stone seats with a central hole positioned over deep pits. However, for the average person in Jesus' time, the toilet was a hole in the ground, or the use of Roman public latrines, places where privacy was zero and the risk of infection was extremely high. But here's the technical detail that few people know. Analysis of sediments in these ancient pits revealed the massive presence of parasite eggs, such as tapeworms and lice. This proves that the fight against contamination was real and constant. The most devout Jews, like the Essenes, took the rule of Deuteronomy to the extreme. They would walk almost a kilometer outside the city to bury their remains, ensuring that the holy city would not be contaminated. What does this teach you today? The garbage you allow to accumulate in your environment, whether it's toxic conversations, destructive habits, or physical clutter, attracts parasites to your mind. Just as the ancients needed to manage biological chaos to maintain sanctity, you need to manage informational and relational chaos. If you don't have a specific place to bury and discard what is worthless, this contamination will block your vision and your emotional health. If you value this in-depth investigation that respects history and your intelligence, click the subscribe button. Here, we don't deliver the obvious. We deliver the truth, confirmed by the excavations. If the first pillar was about discarding, the second is about immersion. Nothing defines hygiene in Jesus' time better than mikvah. John the Baptist didn't invent baptism out of thin air. He was using a practice deeply rooted in Jewish culture: purification by water. Jesus himself, before beginning his ministry, underwent immersion. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a physical and spiritual preparation for a new stage in life. Archaeologists have found hundreds of mikvaot, ritual baths, in Jerusalem. These are pools carved into the rock, fed by living water, rain or spring. The impressive detail: many of these baths had a small partition in the middle of the staircase. Why this division? Because the person would go down the impure side and go up the pure side. They were so strict that they didn't want the foot that hadn't yet been dipped to touch the same step as the foot that was already clean. They understood cross-contamination 2,000 years before we knew what a microbe was. Studies show that this consistent practice of washing hands and bodies in specific rituals protected the Jewish people from various plagues throughout the centuries. While the world around them ignored basic hygiene, Jews were forced by the law to wash themselves constantly. But the most curious piece of evidence, which most historians prefer to ignore, is what we're going to see at the end of this video about what really happened to people's clothes and breath back then. You'll be surprised by what was used as detergent. The lesson here is clear. Immersion changes the frequency. Sometimes you're trying to solve your life's problems with the same skin and mindset that created them. You need a moment of total immersion in new environments and new knowledge to leave behind the impurity of the past. If you don't separate your pure side from your impure side, you'll live in an eternal cycle of cross-contamination where your old mistakes cancel out your new successes. We've arrived at the most intimate ritual. How did Jesus and his followers care for their skin, hair, and teeth without soap or toothpaste? Consider Jesus washing the disciples' feet, John 13. We usually focus only on humility, but look at the archaeology. The streets of Jerusalem were paved with stones, but covered in dust, animal dung, and debris. Wearing sandals meant that in 10 minutes your feet would be filthy. Washing feet was an absolute hygienic necessity to avoid bringing diseases from the street into the house and onto the carpets where one ate. How did they clean themselves? There was no soap as we know it. They used olive oil. They rubbed the oil on their bodies and then used a metal instrument called strigil to scrape off the oil along with the dirt and sweat. And the teeth? They used miswak, small tree branches like the Salvadora persica. These twigs were chewed until they formed a brush at the tip. They contain natural fluoride and antibacterial agents. Analyses of skulls from the time of Jesus show that despite not having dentists, many had incredibly healthy teeth due to a diet low in sugar and the constant use of these natural brushes. And the disgusting secret I promised? To wash the tunics and make them white, the launderers used something called nitros, and often fermented urine. The ammonia in the urine was the most powerful bleach of the time. That's why laundries were always located outside the city. The smell was unbearable. This teaches us about maintaining purpose. Jesus washed the disciples' feet to show that on the path to success and to higher goals, you will inevitably get dirty. The mistake isn't getting dirty on the journey. The mistake is refusing to wash away the dirt before moving on to the next stage. If you carry the manure of past roads into your new opportunities, you will rot your future. Be diligent in keeping your steps clean. The key takeaway from this documentary is that hygiene in the Bible was never just about aesthetics. Jesus confronted the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 23, verse 25, saying that they cleaned the outside of the cup, but inside it was full of greed and self-indulgence. Jesus was not against hygiene. He was against the hypocrisy of using physical cleanliness to hide moral decay. Jesus' example is the perfect balance. He washed himself, he cared for his body, which was his temple, but he was not afraid to touch lepers, the most impure people in society, because his inner purity was so powerful that, instead of him being contaminated by disease, his holiness contaminated the sick with health. The secret is not to isolate yourself in a sterile bubble. The secret is to have such a strong mental and spiritual hygiene structure that you can walk through chaos without letting chaos enter you. Protect your atmosphere. Know who can interfere with your plans and what can enter your home. History isn't just made of great battles and kings. It's made of small, daily acts of preservation. Now that you know the harsh physical reality of life in the first century, you have a responsibility to look at your own life with more discernment. Ancient wisdom never becomes outdated. If you want to move forward, you need to clear the channels. Cleanse what is blocking your vision, discard what is rubbish, and protect your body and mind as the sanctuary they truly are. If you seek this kind of profound wisdom, based on facts and not just shallow entertainment, this is the place for you. Follow the channel to continue unearthing the truths that transform understanding into authority. The Bible is the map, archaeology is the evidence, and your life is the field of application. Until the next study.